Adolf Hitler spent the last 12 days of his life in a bunker underneath the Chancellery of the Reich. Here on the 30th of April 1945, the dictator put an end to his own life.
It was evident that he was a man without hope.
Hoffnungsloser Mann vor allem steht.
Unwilling to face the consequences that defeat would bring, the dictator planned his end without any consideration for his desperate nation. An inconspicuous parking lot by a council apartment building just a few hundred meters away from Potsdamer Platz. Here in the center of Berlin, Adolf Hitler had set up his last place of refuge 8 meters below the ground, protected by his Praetorian Guard and by 4-meter thick concrete walls. In April 1945, he gathered his closest aides around him. This 250 square meter concrete coffin was the control room from which he commanded millions of German soldiers until the end, and rallied his nation with appeals to hold out. By the 16th of April 1945, the Red Army had assembled 500,000 Soviet soldiers at the Oder River with the objective of taking the Reich capital. The large-scale offensive began at 3 o'clock that morning. Mortars and Stalin Orgel were firing relentlessly. The Soviet Marshal Georgy Zhukov directed the battle from his command post. Despite some initial setbacks for his army, he was confident that the days of the Third Reich were numbered.
Hitler's regime was in an absolutely hopeless situation. It was evident for everyone, for the dictator himself, of course, since he had the best overview of the situation, but also for the simple man who was trying to get away from the war and had become a refugee, and for the average soldier who fought for survival, that this was the final act. One must also consider that for large parts of the Reich, for large parts of the German population, the war was already over. Only on paper, and if one wanted to, could one still gloss over the situation on the maps in the Führer's headquarters. On paper, and this may have been a glimmer of hope for some people, things didn't look so bad for the Wehrmacht. On paper, it still encompassed over 10 million men.
Hitler's soldiers had long become war-weary. However, their oath to the Führer bound them. The few troops that were still fit for action had fortified the capital in order to ward off the attack. Although most cinemas had closed long ago, propaganda cameramen were still on the road for the Nazi newsreels. This absurd interview was shot somewhere near the Oder front. It was supposed to boost confidence back at home. Hey fellows, you built a nice villa here.
You can say that again, it's not bad.
So where are you from?
I'm from Berlin-Charlottenburg.
Oh, from Berlin-Charlottenburg, are you?
Yes, sir.
Does your wife know you're here then?
Well, at the moment she's not sure.
Really?
She has to get away. She must be somewhere near Lübeck.
Well, then we have to make sure that she sees you again.
Yes, hopefully she'll see me here.
Yes, look, Mum, your boy is fine. What about the Russians? They leave you in peace here, don't they?
Oh, well, it's not too bad. I think they're more scared than we are.
Absolutely. The Führer had already decided at the beginning of March 1945 to await the attack of the Red Army in Berlin. The story began on the 20th of April, Hitler's 56th birthday. Five and a half years of war had left their mark on Hitler. Still, he refused to accept the imminent defeat.
Hitler was a wreck physically. He was ill and looked totally different to the man I remembered from the newsreels. On film, he was an upright, erect figure, vigorous and robust as he inspected parades hour after hour. And even towards the end, he would stand there erect, just like before, as if all that was happening didn't matter at all.
Also aufrecht da, als ob ihm das gar nichts ausmachen würde. Und deswegen war es für mich
So I was totally shocked when I saw him in person for the first time. His back was bowed, his face was sallow, and his eyes were dull. Before, people had always talked about Hitler's glittering eyes that made such an impression. His left hand was shaking, and when it was lying on the table, he would cover it with his right, so that people didn't notice it. And he also dragged his left leg. The man was a wreck.
On that day, 20th of April, the dictator went to the garden of the Chancellery in order to honor members of the Hitler Youth.
Am 20. April waren 3
Three delegations were present on that day. Hitler came out with his entourage without wearing a coat, which was unlike his known normal appearance, a coat with a turned-up collar. He had only an army jacket on and his left arm was behind his back, the hand holding onto the jacket's tail.
Da hatte den linken Arm und hielt sich dann an seinem eigenen Rock fest. Und Hitler
he was shaking badly. And then he came and looked me in the eye, and I could see that his eyes were watering. After he had greeted everyone, he stood before us and gave us a short speech in which he said the Reich could be compared with a critically ill patient, but he would now give it a new medicine which would be ready soon and which would save us.
Aber es würde jetzt noch ein Medikament geben, das bald fertig sei und das uns retten
and
würde.
we would have to hold out now until the medicine was ready and could be used to save the Reich.
Medikament fertig ist und angewandt werden können, das Reich zu retten.
Briefing had been a daily ritual since the beginning of the war. After Hitler's arrival in Berlin, it would take place in the Chancellery of the Reich. Now, in view of the military situation, the briefing was transferred to the Führer's bunker for safety reasons.
Das Lagerzimmer war entsprechend.
Because of the small dimensions of the bunker, due to the thick reinforced concrete walls, the briefing room was tiny, just 3.5 by 3.5 meters.
War das winzig klein eigentlich. Es waren nur 350 mal 350 Meter.
All there was in the room was a table, also relatively small, on which the maps were spread out during the briefing, and a chair on which Hitler sat. All the others had to stand. There was no space for anything else.
Stuhl, auf dem Hitler saß, alle anderen mussten stehen. Da war kein Platz für weitere Bequemlichkeiten.
Hitler's generals did not dare to contradict their commander. He entertained fantasies of imminent counter-campaigns.